Welcome back to another episode of 2 on OSU. I'm Sam Hutchens. I feel comfortable speaking for Ben Hutchens when I say we are excited to be here, excited to join you, and thanks for listening to 2 on OSU. You're probably coming to find out about the Big 12 championship, and Ben and I will certainly get into that there. The Cowboys were decimated in Arlington. It wasn't pretty. It was kind of a crazy game, Ben. On the sideline before the game, I walked by Bevo, The Undertaker, and Texas Governor Greg Abbott. It was like the start of a bad joke. Just a crazy game, but I guess let's jump into it there. Who had thicker shoulders, The Undertaker or Bevo?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Bevo by a hair. And that's no disrespect to The Undertaker, who was bigger in person than the guy I walked on TV. I joked, Sam, at the start of that game, when Alan Bowman threw that pass to Rashad Owens and it was a no-call pass interference, I said, man, who's in charge of these pass interferences? Is it The Undertaker? I mean, someone who knows a little bit about contact, I think, was in charge of those PI calls.
Well, we'll get into it there. It was an interesting game. Ben and I, we kind of predicted it a little bit. The Cowboys lost 49-21. Felt like it could have been worse. One of those scores, maybe you look up and think, oh, dang, 49-21. It even felt further apart than that, I thought. But Texas is now on to the college football playoff. The Cowboys are on to the TaxAct Texas Bowl to face Texas A&M, who they just faced in 2019, and Texas A&M barely won that one. So let's thank the sponsors, Ben. The sponsors have been good to us all year, certainly good to us, helping us cover all these games down the stretch, and we look forward to covering in person in the Texas Bowl and beyond. So Two Fellas Movers, thanks so much to those guys, and we encourage you to give them a call if you need two fellas to move things. Call them before you call Ben and I, if you're our friends that are listening. The National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, thank you to those guys. Beautiful building on the outside. Looks just as great on the inside, too. MidFirst Bank, it's important to get your finances done. Ben and I are just graduated from college. Certainly, we were crossing that bridge recently, getting everything in order. Whatever age you are, get with MidFirst Bank. They'll help you get set up. And Fire Lake Jobs will also help you get set up if you need a job. Go over to that website. They're great in the state of Oklahoma in getting people jobs and a change in career path. And lastly, I'd like to thank Oklahoma Ford dealers. Ben, our trip to Arlington was courtesy of a Ford vehicle. That's what the sellout crew piled into. I don't know about you. Were you as comfortable as I was, Ben? It was a good experience.
Yeah, the third row had plenty of room. We brought it up, and I think you even wrote your newsletter from the back row of the Ford. Great time.
Drive into your best in Oklahoma Ford dealers today for the best deals on Ford's full lineup of trucks and SUVs. Ford is the best in Oklahoma. Ben, the Cowboys may be the best team in Oklahoma, but they're not the best team in the Big 12. Texas clearly proved that. Maybe Texas proved Oklahoma State's not the best team in the Big 12. That's all for fans to decide. But what was your main takeaway from the game, reaction to the game?
Yeah, Sam, look, if you're an OSU fan and you've made it this far in the episode, thank you. Because I know the last thing you want to hear us do is recap what happened in that blowout. You've already seen it. You've already probably tried to move on in your mind. But Sam, there are some, I think, important distinctions to be drawn from this game rather than the UCF blowout or the South Alabama blowout. And it's a point you made. You said it wasn't exactly what Mike Gundy said post-game that kind of perked your ears up. It's what he didn't say.
That's right. After South Alabama and after UCF, those blowouts, Gundy went to his refrain, we got outcoached. And he did not say, we got outcoached. And it didn't really feel like that. It felt like the Cowboys were out-recruited in the offseason and out-jumped and out 40 timed and everything else. Texas was just a better team. So that's what I thought was interesting, is that wasn't the refrain of we got outcoached. And maybe the Cowboys did get outcoached. Brian Nardo didn't have as much experience in this type of game as Steve Sarkisian does. And Texas was certainly running wide open. But a lot of that was just athleticism and the fact that Texas is going to compete for a national championship in the college football playoff soon. The Longhorns, they have 11 players that could be drafted. That's kind of the number that's thrown around, and a few of those guys have first and second round grades. OSU's always done more with less, Ben, but even in a talent disparity, This showed that, yeah, the Cowboys, maybe the Longhorns are at a tier of their own in the Big 12.
When we were down there pregame, Sam, Tavondre Sweat was bigger than I would have ever expected, which is saying something. We talked about the big Texas defensive lineman, and when I was up in the press box, the Longhorns were faster than what I thought they looked like, and Gundy said as much on tape. You know, they're a lot faster and stuff than you would ever think.
Tavondre Sweat might beat the Undertaker in an arm wrestle down there. He might have been one of the guys that had broader shoulders, bigger dude.
Yeah. No, man, I mean, the thing that the thought that popped into my mind is, gosh, like, the sidelines didn't even apply to Texas. It felt like every time they got loose to the side, they were tiptoeing and running by OSU players. It just felt like kind of the general laws of athleticism in the Big 12 that we've seen this season didn't apply to Texas. And they were running wide open. A bunch of plays of 10 or more yards, Sam. It was 27 plays that Texas had that were double digits. OSU only had 8 double-digit yardage plays.
Yeah, and even if we take away what Texas did, and yeah, like Texas is really good, the Cowboys didn't really play that well anyway. Offensively and defensively, they really struggled out there. So regardless of, you know, how much it's tougher to play well against a really athletic, well-coached team, the Cowboys didn't really play well regardless. I didn't think. But yeah, it was maybe the most just a matter of, that was kind of an SEC team out there, or an SEC ready team. I thought it was funny, Ben, after being mocked all year long with the SEC chants that, you know, Texas and OU, Texas finally turned it around, and those Texas fans started chanting SEC, SEC. And it was just like, dang, man, this team, they're projected, you know, top 4, could make some noise in the playoff, and they could be set up well for success in the SEC. I'd recommend checking out Barry Trammell's column. He kind of said, if you're an Oklahoma State fan, maybe your reaction should be good riddance. You know, the Horns are getting too good, and Oklahoma State, you're going to have a lot better luck getting back in that game and winning it against Big 12 teams, not Texas level teams.
Yeah, the only refrain to that would be, well, Oklahoma State's kind of owned Texas the last, you know, decade or so, and they have. Oklahoma State, I think, even with this game, still goes into the divorce, goes into the SEC Big 12 world with a feeling of, hey, you know, we kind of hung with Texas. We kind of had them, even though this game was so lopsided. But yeah, when those fans were chanting SEC, SEC as Arch Manning was in the game, Sam, it was like, yeah, this team is going to be a problem, and maybe it's a good thing for Oklahoma State's chances getting back to this game in Arlington that the Texas Longhorns are going to be in the SEC.
Well, it was certainly a different blowout, and I think that's probably the best way to put it, is because, yeah, the Cowboys still got blown out. It was not close. Heck, you know, 5 drives into the game for Texas, but it really wasn't close throughout. But unlike a UCF game where it's like, dang, the Cowboys are getting boat raced out there, and we don't really know what's going on. The only answer is being outcoached. There were just more answers. So I think that's why Mike Gundy seemed a lot more jovial, you know, comparative to a game like South Alabama or UCF, where it really starts some alarm bells up.
Well, and listen to this. It's not what anybody wanted to hear in that moment, but like, OSU had a great season. OSU exceeded expectations. You know, the talk going into this one is like over under 6.5 games or whatever it was. And for the Cowboys to be in Arlington, it felt like a really special season. And the TaxAct Texas Bowl might not be the consolation prize a lot of people wanted, but, you know, getting to Arlington is I think an even bigger accomplishment than any bowl game OSU would have been going to this season. So sure, I think it was kind of a point post game where Mike Gundy leaned back and said, hey, you know, this game is something special, and we have accomplished something pretty good this year.
That's true. It ended with obviously a super sour taste for a lot of OSU fans, and really there were a ton of dips in this roller coaster, but it's been an impressive ride this season for the Cowboys that certainly not in the Big 12 poll projected to or anything else. But you're right. I guess it has been overall a season of success, and maybe you don't count starting seasons of success, until you see who leaves in the portal. And, maybe it's, can you hold the team together and carry anything into next year? So we'll see on that. The transfer portal opened as we record today on Monday. And then it's only going to get crazier. But so far, the Cowboys have been, not too many people have been jettisoning out. But it's interesting to see.
Let me interject one quick thought real quick before we move on to kind of the transfer portal and next season. It would be a fun poll, I think, on Twitter or something. I'd be curious to see if Cowboy fans, if we could get them to participate, would rather sit through the 2021 Big 12 championship game again or the 2023 Big 12 championship game again. Which one do you think? I mean, both equally brutal from an OSU perspective and in completely different ways. What do you think the answer would be there?
Yeah, I mean, we were there for both of them, Ben. I know the more fun one to cover was 21. Obviously, being a media member, you're kind of removed from the heartbreak of it all, and you're more analytical in it. But for fans, I imagine it'd be pretty split. Because in 21, you were the team with the expectations. Oklahoma State was supposed to win and go to the college football playoff, and it was an amazing game that was an inch or two short. And then this year is a little different. I talked to Brandon Presley after the game, Ben, and he told me he kind of felt the same. So he said it's still a heartbreak, whether you lose by an inch or however much Oklahoma State lost by against Texas. So I know that's what Presley was feeling. I imagine a lot of the players kind of felt the same. But when you do take a step back, I think the 23 team, it was a lot more impressive for them to even get there compared to the 21 team.
Yeah.
But Ben, we did some predictions early in the season, before the season even started, that we thought would be fun to revisit. Your predictions aged pretty well, so I think I'll lead you off. But go over the questions and then how we fared. We've talked all season long about how unpredictable this team is, but it's interesting to turn back to some preseason questions that we had.
Yeah, it is fun to look at that because I watched our video we did from back then, and it's like I remember where I was in that moment, and it was just a completely different opinion of the team and a completely different idea of what was going to happen than what it is now, which is of course why you play the games. We asked each other in the preseason or week one or whenever it was, which transfer OSU was going to miss the most. Do you remember who you said?
I said Spencer Sanders. And I don't know, maybe the answer to this is NA. It's kind of a no contest a little bit. It's hard to evaluate truly without Spencer Sanders playing, and he backed up Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a good team, Peach Bowl bound, but I don't know. Bowman filled in pretty admirably. I think maybe where the Cowboys missed Sanders the most is a game like the Big 12 championship game when you are a little outmatched, you are a little under the gun, and you need a gunslinger. You need a guy who's going to run around. He'll make some bad plays. He'll make some crazy good plays, and you just kind of have to live with it. In Spencer Sanders, I think he at least would have given Oklahoma State a higher ceiling and a lower floor. He kind of just shakes everything up a little bit. He's like one of those, is it a catalyst in chemistry when you pour it in and just everything starts shaking and you never know what's going to happen. So I think for a lot of the time, Oklahoma State needed a guy like Bowman, keep everything level. And then for a game like the Big 12 championship game, Cowboys could have used a guy like Sanders. So no contest, hard to tell.
Yeah. And Bowman did make some plays with his legs. But I agree. He's not kind of built in the same way where if you need to come behind from, 3-4 touchdowns down.
Like Sanders did in 21. Sanders did that in 21. He got him way behind. I mean, he had some picks. I think a couple of them were bad luck, if I remember right. But then he did get him back. So maybe the 23 game would have looked a little different with Sanders in there.
Or maybe it wouldn't have. Yeah. Anyway, the transfer I thought OSU was going to miss the most was JPR, John Paul Richardson, Sam. And I think I said that. I don't know if I was spot on there because I was surprised by the emergence of Deshaun Stribling and Leon Johnson III. I did not expect to see both of those guys impact OSU as much as they did.
Yeah, and Presley was kind of the third down guy this year. I mean, that was really something that JPR did well last year, but it was Presley a ton of the time. Leon Johnson got some looks on third down. So yeah, I think the wide receiver core kind of came out of nowhere this year, even through injuries. So that was hard to predict too. I think we both missed ultimately, Ben. I think it's been Jabbar Muhammad, cornerback at Washington, who's emerged as one of the best players in college football, and he's got Washington in the college football playoff. But I just think again, the Big 12 championship game, when you lose a guy like Corey Black, your experienced DB out there, the Cowboys have a promising DB core, but it's really young. And man, a guy like Jabbar Muhammad would be really important to that team.
Yeah, even a guy like Thomas Harper would help. Back there, a veteran back there, and of course he's at Notre Dame. The other kind of question we asked is, what's the scariest trap game? The one that should have OSU kind of worried, and we were both pretty accurate there.
It's funny. I said South Alabama. I told you so. I guess I can say that. It's interesting though. The South Alabama game wasn't necessarily as much of a trap game as much of like a, hey, this is the mid-major that you should be expecting to give you a tough fight. So South Alabama obviously won 33-7 in BPS. It was not pretty, and the Jaguars, Ben, they finished 6-6. So it wasn't like losing to Tulane last year, where it's like, oh dang, that loss ended up actually being very, very explainable. The Jaguars were nothing special this season, and they just came into BPS and really outplayed the Cowboys. So that was my trap game. But you, I think, maybe more correctly identified the ultimate trap game that was surprising.
Yeah, I said UCF, and I didn't predict a rainstorm. I didn't predict, John Reese Plumlee to go nuclear with his legs, but I did kind of have a funny feeling about that game in the bounce house, and I think that was certainly a low point this season for the Cowboys. Just didn't look good really throughout that entire game.
You were kind of cheating just picking the game after Bedlam. But now when Oklahoma State won it, it's like, oh shoot, they really do have everything on the table. And then they went to Orlando and got smoked. So yeah, two trap games. Did we miss any? Were those the only two options you think, or was there another one that maybe Oklahoma State won?
I mean, Houston was one I think we had kind of looked at, but OSU ended up taking care of business there in comeback fashion. I think those were
kind of got out of the trap against BYU a little bit too. Like that would have been the true trap of, just win and you're moving on, and then they almost didn't. So they escaped two traps, got caught in two as well.
And hey, there's one point I wanted to circle back on. Now that we are in sort of a lean back kind of reflection mode, maybe the South Alabama game you predicted, Sam, was exactly what OSU needed. It kind of helped them reorient their running attack. They simplified the scheme. Alan Bowman comes out the next game against Iowa State as kind of the guy. Maybe that loss at home in Boone Pickens Stadium, first loss in a long time to a Group of 5 opponent, maybe that was what the Cowboys needed to get to Arlington. I don't know, just an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, the first loss since that Central Michigan game, right? That will create a rile up all Oklahoma State fans. But yeah, after that South Alabama game, that was when the Cowboys made all the changes. Gave Ollie Gordon the ball, gave Alan Bowman the full-time job, went to Ames and said, we're stripping out the playbook, running kind of the bare minimum, getting Ollie Gordon north and south. And you're right. That's how the Cowboys got on a heater and got to the Big 12 championship game. So it is interesting. That game, it was the turning point, and maybe they needed a conversation that said, this isn't working. You got to change everything. It's a good point.
Yeah. We also had a bigger prediction, or a bigger picture prediction, which is our overall records that we thought OSU would end up with. And Sam, I said 8-4. You said 9-3. The Cowboys finished 9-3 kind of in the regular season, and then went 9-4 overall after the Big 12 championship. So we were both spot on there, but we were both, I guess, right to pick OSU above what Vegas thought, what people in the desert were thinking the Cowboys would finish.
Yeah, it was one of those predictions. We didn't put anything on it. If you are the type of person to put anything on your predictions, one of those deals you almost want to close your eyes and not watch the season, because at times, a
Yeah.
lot of the times, it did not look like the Cowboys were going to get 9 wins or 8 wins or 7 wins. But it was a tale of two seasons. And like you said, Ben, after the South Alabama game, Oklahoma State changed everything. And then they lost against Iowa State. But after that, everything really turned around and the Cowboys played really well down the stretch. So not how I expected my prediction to be fulfilled, but we were both pretty accurate on that.
Mm-hmm. We can get into the 2-minute drill, Sam, unless you want to talk a little bit about what Mike Gundy shared today in his pre-bowl press conference. It'll be the last time we talk with Mike before, I think, signing day should be the next time we talk to him. Sam, what were kind of some of your quick takeaways from what Mike said before the bowl?
Yeah, a couple quick hitters. He said he expects a pretty full roster, not a lot of opt-outs for the bowl game. And I really don't either. There's just not a lot of Cowboys that have an NFL future or just want to be preparing for the combine. Not as much as past years. So there's always some surprises. I'd hate to venture out names right now of guesses, but he expects a pretty full roster for the TaxAct Bowl. And he's not sure, but hoping to get Jaden Nixon back. Nixon, the Oklahoma State backup running back, didn't play in the Big 12 championship game. He was dealing with a personal matter. But Gundy's hopeful, kind of expecting to get him back, but he said he wasn't gonna venture out any guarantees on that front either.
Yeah. And I'm going to check my imaginary watch here, because in transfer portal season, you really have to check it minute by minute. So here we are sitting on Monday afternoon recording, and 2 Cowboys have entered the transfer portal. Tyrone Weber, a JUCO offensive lineman from New Mexico Military Institute. He was a high-prized kind of piece of this transfer signing class that just didn't work out for the Cowboys. He wasn't able to play in any of the games this season, so he's back in the portal looking for another home. And Lardarius Webb Jr., a safety also from the JUCO ranks, is right now the second Cowboy in the portal.
Okay, Ben, we'll close it with the 2-minute drill. Get your imaginary watch back out. Be quick, get in and out under 2 minutes with me. But I want to ask you, what did you think about Brett Yormark's off the field handiwork in the Big 12 championship game? It was everywhere. Nelly performing, the UFC belt, the UFC logo on the field. What'd you think of it? Cool or not? And is it something that's sustainable and bringing eyes to the program, bringing eyes to the conference, or is it a little cringy?
Well, first of all, you just made a lot of people mad, mistaking or confusing WWE for UFC. So you'll
My
have
bad.
to answer. You'll have to answer from the social media mob there, I'm sure. But no, Sam, it didn't necessarily all appeal to me, which isn't. I might not be the target audience of Nelly and of the WWE there, Sam. But I do like that Brett Yormark is continuing to try things. Right, a couple years ago, it was the Bape kind of clothing brand in the Big 12 championship game, and this year he's doing some new things. And he said we're going to continue to do that. He said, look, it's going to be kind of like the Super Bowl. We're going to have halftime acts and continue to do things that elevate the Big 12 brand. So I wasn't the biggest fan of kind of the gimmicks out there Saturday, but I do like to see Brett Yormark continuing to do some innovative things and just trying stuff.
I'm with you. I think Yormark is overall doing a good job. Not everything hits in terms of off the field engagement and concerts and brand, combinations, but he doesn't need to bat 100. I think he's just doing anything different, doing anything he can to innovate is going to be important in the years to come in college football. And his ability, I've been impressed with it enough to have a WWE mark on the field and with the belt. It's just fun, and conference championships should be, I think, a little fun. The person I was most impressed with was Warren Zeiders on the national anthem. I thought he did a great job. Hopefully you were able to catch some of that, or they showed some of it on the broadcast. But I think we're a little too young for Nelly, but I wasn't able to catch too much of that performance. But hey, he's hitting all age groups. So, and I know the WWE, it appealed to everyone. I saw people of all ages really getting up and out of their seat for that. So I guess good on Yormark overall. I've been mostly impressed.
Yeah. Talking with him, I've never encountered a person like Brett Yormark. I mean, and you don't say that about a lot of people. But truly, Brett Yormark, I sat in his press conference before the game, Sam, and he just comes across, feels different than literally anybody else I've come across. And maybe that's why he was working with, Rock Nation and Jay-Z and got to the heights he is there. But yeah, I think the Big 12 is in good hands with Brett Yormark.
Well, that'll close it for us on the podcast. Thanks for listening. It was probably a tough episode to click on. Hopefully we made it worth your while for Oklahoma State fans, and we'll be back next week and later on, leading up and covering the transfer portal and the TaxAct Bowl as best we can. Thanks to Jacquelyn Musgrove and Michael Lane behind the scenes for making the podcast look as good as it does. And stay tuned for whatever we have coming down the line. Stories, audio content, and the rest. Thank you.